What's up, guys? It's Alex at Tailwater Fly Shop with another 2-material fly for you. The crazy-eyed uncle. Alright, so the hook we're going to use today is the SL12S short in a 1/0. I know you guys have seen this hook a lot. It's my favorite tarpon hook, along with the regular SL12S, but I really like the short. It's nice. It's a nice profile. So it's thick enough to be strong, but it's not so thick that it's hard to stick a fish. So I'm going to tie this fly with a bright pink thread. You're not going to see the thread at all, except for right up at the eyes. And so I'm also one that doesn't really think that thread color really matters. But I do like to tie my black and my flies that are primarily black with black thread or with the other color that's going with it. But all right, so I'm just going to put a little thread bump right here just for the purposes of kind of being able to see where I'm at. And then this Marabou, here's what I'm going to do. This is Extra Select Marabou in olive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Marabou, actually, I'm going to hold the tip of it. I'm going to brush down these longer fibers that I want to use. And then I'm going to pluck the tip off of it. And then I'm going to brush these longer fibers back. And what that gives me is that gives me a really nice flowing tail. And you can see that has no core to it, so it doesn't have any stiffness. So this fly is not long at all. It's pretty compact, but it's going to have a ton of movement, especially even when it's sitting still. And the reason that I like this material paired with a deer hair head, like you're going to see, is because one of the great things about deer hair is that it kind of suspends in the water even when you're not, you know, stripping it. It still has movement to it. So that's something that I really like, and the Marabou does that. So I'm just going to post wrap this a couple times. Get it caught in my material clip. And post wrap this just a couple times to get it propped up, and kind of wrap back onto it. All right. So I'm going to change bobbins really quickly because this one feels like somebody took it and bent it out way too much, and I don't like that. So switching bobbins. This is where Adam works his magic to make it look like nothing is happening. Just trying to tie some flies here, people. Sometimes stuff happens, and we show you. All right, back in the game. Okay, the other bobbin I had, it felt like someone took it and they like bent it out too much, loosened it too much. So I couldn't. I had to squeeze it so hard. All right, so I'm just gonna clean this up a little bit and get a nice little ramp down for the collar of the fly. So what I have is another Marabou, and I'm gonna tip tie this. So I'm gonna tie it in by the tip, if you weren't sure what tip tying a fly meant. I'm just going to peel some of those back, tie the tip in. This is going to be our collar. This isn't necessarily needed, okay? I've caught a lot of fish on a lot of ugly flies that I've tied, but it's a pretty hard transition to the deer hair, so I just like this as a little bit of a transition material. So not a lot, just a couple wraps, try and work my thread through. Okay, cut off this extra. Push this back, wrap up on it a little bit just to make sure that it lays back, and smooth this out for the deer hair head. So the reason that this fly works really well for tarpon is because it's pretty neutrally buoyant with this deer hair head and with the eyes that I'm going to put on this thing. And a lot of times when you're tarpon fishing, you make a bad cast that's way too far in front of a fish, or the fish are super spooky, so you have to cast really early. And the nice thing about this is it kind of just sits and suspends at a depth that's good, and just kind of sits there waiting, so you can just sit there and wait. So these are the weightless bead chain eyes from Sightcast. This is, hold on, let me put it on here. So weightless bead chain, okay, and this is going to be the shrimp pink color. And the reason that I like these eyes, and the namesake, this is the namesake of the fly, right, the crazy-eyed uncle, is because A, it adds buoyancy, but B, I like the contrasting color, because if the water is a little bit stained, it makes this fly a little bit easier to track in the water. It makes it a little bit easier for us to see on the boat, and just gives us a little bit of something, especially if it's darker water, or the water gets stained, like the tide changes and the water gets a little bit of color to it, or it's just a little bit murky. It just helps with that. But also, I think that olive and pink are a nice color together. I don't know if they are, if it works, but I like it. So that's what we're gonna use. So you could also use chartreuse. You could use a matching olive color. You could use black. Use whatever. But I like these eyes just because they have a rope core, so they don't bend like the other mono eyes do. But they're plastic and they're weightless, which is a pretty nice feature. So now for the fun part, or the not fun part, depending on what you think. I have a love-hate relationship with deer hair. I love what it does. I hate using it, but hey, you know, for the fish, right? We'll do anything. We'll do anything for the fish. So I'm just going to get a pretty generous chunk of this olive deer belly hair. Again, you can use any color you want, but this is just an olive color, and it matches. So I'm going to make it so that the tips go just past, and I'm going to put this on a couple of loose wraps, and then I'm going to let this spin around the fly. I'm going to help it a little bit, A, because there's thread on there, so it doesn't want to spin super great, and B, just because I'm not great with deer hair, so I'm going to help it. I don't do the fancy let the thread do it, because it won't work that way. So I'm going to pull this deer hair back, get a wrap in front of the eyes, basically trying to make these front fibers stand straight up. Okay, then I'm going to get just a couple half hitches in. We're going to coat this beast in glue, so we can just do a couple half hitches so that we can get the thread out of there, and then we will get to trimming. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and tie like a toad shaped head with this bunny hair, or with this deer hair, and it just kind of gives it that, where it swims straight, it doesn't bob or jig at all. So I'm going to pick out the hair just a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to flip this fly over in my vise. It's a nice thing about a rotary vise, you can flip it straight over. I'm basically going to lay my scissors flat against the hook shank and trim all the way back, and I'm just going to give a couple just straight back cuts. Get that off of there. Do the same thing on top. Good pair of scissors is nice here. A razor blade works well too, but not necessarily needed for this. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my vise up, and I'm going to kind of angle the scissors back and trim the sides of it, again just to try and flatten it out. Same thing on this other side. Then we got some of those longer hairs. We got a few more than I like. So I'm going to trim some of those off the bottom just to make sure that this thing rides straight and smooth. Adam's probably going to speed this part up so you don't see me struggling with this, or he'll probably leave it so you do see me struggling with it. I just want to take a little bit more off the bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trusty Zap-A-Gap, my super glue. I'm going to thoroughly coat this thread up by the eye, underneath. Some people even like to put a coat of super glue on the deer hair. But this fly, again, tied a bunch of different colors. But this fly is now ready to go out and catch tarpon with it. That's why I designed it. But this fly would also catch snook. You know, put a different hook on it, put some weighted eyes on it, and catch redfish. But again, 2 materials. That's it. And you can really fill your box. And this is a nice way for you to get into deer hair and using the benefits of deer hair without the headache of deer hair. So thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. What are some flies you'd like to see me try and tie with 2 materials? And maybe 1 material. Challenge. But what are some flies you'd like to see me try and tie with 2 different materials? And we'll get them to you.